Okay, guys, good morning. Welcome back. Second week, Python programming introduction. And the aim today is to do a lesson for half the class. And then after the break, you do your first in-class lab, okay, which is worth 5%. So I'll give you an hour and 10 minutes to it. You finish it, you submit it, and your work is done, right? But it is an independent assignment. And I don't want to repeat it again. It has to be done independently. Hopefully, your friends from other section haven't shared it with you, but if they have, then there are ways of knowing it. I can always know what's going on. So that's the agenda today. So I'll refresh your memories so that you remember what we did last week. And I would definitely recommend that before you come to class, if you want, you can listen to my YouTube quickly, kind of browse through it once and read the chapter, which only takes maybe an hour, so that you know what's going on, so that it's not Greek when you come to class. Because if you've seen something before, it always helps to reiterate it. The rest, of course, is up to you. Right? You're here for a reason. You're paying for it, and I'm hoping that you want to learn something out of the course, so you have to put in some effort. So I'll quickly go through what we did last week. If you remember, Python is an upcoming language. I've shown you it is almost at place 5 now. It is used at many, many places. What you are trying to learn in this course is introduction. So just introducing you to a language so that you know what a computer language is. So it's not the end of it, it's the beginning of it for you guys. We had gone through the idle. I hope all of you have installed Python 64-bit on your machines. You can work with Python in 2 ways. You can work on the command line if you like, or you can work with the integrated environment. That's what the idle is, right? Integrated development learning environment. So both ways, you should know how to work both ways, because you never know what you will need. So again, if I forget, remind me. I usually work in idle just because it's easier, but remind me and I'll show you like if you know, oh, can you just show us how to do it on command line? Hopefully I can do that, but I usually do forget. I tend to work on idle. Under the idle environment and also on command line, you can work with the interactive shell, where you see these 3 arrows, these 3 greater than signs, which is interactive. Interactive means you kind of ask a question and you get an answer. So that's an interactive shell, which is good enough to learn a few things. But at the end of the day, you should know how to write a Python program, right? And that's what we will learn. And how do we do that? We open up an editor, we write a Python program, and then we run it and we get our results. Also keep in mind, Python program is a language. The computer does not understand the language. It has to be converted into machine language, which is done by an interpreter. And it's just a software program that somebody wrote for us, right? So somebody wrote an interpreter, which is again a program that converts your Python program code into machine language. And once the machine language is understood by the machine, it's compiled and executed, right? We had learned about more than two important functions. One, the input function that allows you to read input from the user. It is always assumed, not assumed, it's a rule that any input that you take from the user is string, it's text, right? So if you need to use it as a number, whether it be an int or whether it be a float, you have to convert it into an int or float using the int or the float functions. The vice versa also exists. If you want to convert a number to a string, there is a string function. Also, you learned about the print function. The print function allows you to print something on the screen. Of course, if you don't see output, a program is useless, right? A program always takes input and gives output. So the output that is created, you can print it on the screen. And the print function assumes that all its arguments are string in nature. So if you put anything in quotes, double quotes, it is automatically a string. But if you would like to print a number on the screen, then you have to convert it into a string, and the str function is available. So you should know about the input function, you should know about the print function,
You should know the string, the int, and the float function. These are the functions you learned. You also know that there are two data types. Till now, you know that there are two data types. You have the string data type and you have the number data type that is available in Python. Right? The number data type comes in two flavors. They can either be ints, which are whole numbers, negative or positive, within a certain range, of course. And then you have floats, which are numbers again with a fractional part. So even if you don't have a fraction part, then it's going to be 0. So 0.0. So floating point numbers with a fraction part, negative or positive, again there is a certain range. You can go beyond that range. When I say range, negative numbers to positive numbers. Okay. Now Python is a weakly typed language. Weakly typed language means you can use the same variable, the same box in memory to put a string, again reuse to put a number, a float, an int, back to a string, and so on. So it is a loosely typed language. But what is a variable? A variable is basically a named memory location. So it has a name, right? Or you could call it a box if you like, but it is a named variable of a certain size. It could be 2 bytes, 4 bytes, 8 bytes, depends what type of variable you're using. It is a named memory location in which you can put a value, a single value. So names are important. So how do you give a name to a memory location? You use roots. You can use letters, you can use digits, you can use the underscore, and you cannot start the name with a number. That's it, right? That's what you did last week. To continue what we did last week, I'm going to introduce you to a new data type today. That new data type is called Boolean data type. So keep in mind that programming was created so that whatever we did in our daily lives as humans, we could automate it. So whatever you do in your daily lives, like things like, oh, I need to work with a number, you have a number type. We need to talk to each other, which is text or strings, we have a string type. We usually also have to make decisions. If it is raining, carry an umbrella. If it is sunny, you may still like to carry an umbrella, right? If it is snowing, you would like to wear your snow boots. So you make decisions in your everyday life. So there should be something in a programming language that allows you to make decisions, which we will learn today. You in your daily life, you do repetitive jobs. For example, right now for 3 hours, you are going to attend my class. So it's a repetitive job. So there will be something in a programming language that will allow you to do a repetitive job. So all that happens. Or while you're driving a car, gas is repeatedly being used. So that's again a repetitive job, right? You increase your speed, you decrease your speed. So there should be some way of increasing the speed and decreasing the speed. So everything that you do in your daily life, there will be some counterpart in the programming world to do it. That's the aim. So in your daily life, when you make decisions, you say, is it raining? The answer is yes or no. NP, let me not go to class. Is there an in-class assignment today? Yes, I should be attending class. Right? So since there is a yes or a no variable that you use many a times, there is a corresponding variable that is called a Boolean data variable in Python. Most languages, all languages will have it. So all languages will have string types, all languages will have number types, all languages will have Boolean types. So we are going to work with the Boolean type today. The Boolean type, Boolean, the name has come after George Boole, who actually created the Boolean type. So a Boolean data variable, like any other data variable, will have a name, right? If you need to use it, if you want to use the two literal constants in Boolean, there are only two literal constants. With numbers, it's vast, infinite, right? An integer can take infinite number of values. So can a float number. So can a string data type. But with Boolean data type, a Boolean data type only has two literals or constants defined under its cap, true and false. That's it, right? So that when you declare a Boolean data type, you can either assign it a value true or you can assign it a value false. So let's try. Let's try it on the interactive shell, and then we'll try it on and then we'll write a program in Python to do it. Okay, so I'm going to take a variable called flag. You could have called your variable anything. Usually flags are used, flags, done. I mean, these are names of variables that you usually use because flags tells you whether something is true or false, okay? And assign it a value true. Please notice that I've started with the capital T.
The spelling is TRUE, nothing else. So the two constants, true and false, have to be defined with a certain spelling. And that spelling is TRUE for true and false, FALSE, has to start with a capital T. And it's a constant, okay? It's a predefined Boolean constant. So you can't use true for anything else. You can't name a variable true because it's reserved in the language. So if I do that, and remember the assignment operator, the equal sign that we call equal sign, though there's another equality sign, flag gets a value. You'll say, how do I know what went into flag? Look for it. You can print it like this. You can just say, what's the value of flag? Or you can always say print flag. And it says, oh, flag has true. Now, if you would like to assign to flag or to any other variable a value false, that's how you assign. The blank before and after the equal sign or the assignment operator are not necessary. It's only for neatness and readability, right? So it is easy to read programs when you kind of space it properly. And now flag gets a false value. How do you check it? You say, what is the value of flag? Can you spit it out for me? And it says, there it is, it's false. You cannot assign, if you try to misspell it, don't spell it properly or do not use a capital T or F, it's not going to work as a Boolean variable. So you say, what happens? What do you think happens in this? What do you think this statement means? Make a logical thinking. What do you think this statement is saying?
I think it's going to be an error because it's not in quotes, so we'll take it as a string.
Yes.
So it's just going to be nonsense to it, I think.
Exactly. So, Marcus, right? What's your name? Ian. Okay, sorry. Ian. So Ian is saying that's going to give an error. I agree with him. Why? Because let's look at why do I agree with him. On the right-hand side of the assignment operator, you have a variable name called true. If it's not in quotes, it's a variable name, right? It's not the constant true because notice something, it didn't turn red. And red is meaning something reserved. So we can make color coding because it's an environment that was created. There is color coding in it. So it's not a constant. It's not a variable. Why? Because I haven't yet defined it. There is nothing called true. I didn't give true any value. So when I try to assign a variable's value to another variable, it's going to say, but where is true? I don't know where is true. What is true? Tell me what is true. So I'm going to get an error. And it's, what does it say? It says name error. It says name true is not defined. Now, if I define true to be a, if I define true to be an integer, I just took it to be an integer. And now if I say give flag the value of true, it will work. Now true is defined, right? So variables have to be defined. They have to be given a value before you can use them. So flag was a Boolean variable when I started. But remember, I said Python is a weakly typed language. To really, it doesn't matter. It's a box in which you can put whatever you like. It's not how we are organized in this sense. But does that happen with every language? No. Most languages are strictly typed. If you want a box in which you want to put a number, that's all it can contain, a number. If you want a box in which you want to put a string, that's all it will contain. You cannot mix and match. With Python, whenever it was created maybe more by a careless programmer, or maybe for programmers who could learn it easily without thinking so much. The human beings don't do that. If you have to drink water, you put it in a glass or in a bottle, right? You don't put your shoe in a glass. You know what I mean? So for us, we are also strictly typed. Human beings are strictly typed. We don't mix and match. But Python is a weakly typed language. So I was able, now it's fine. Now, if I want to see the value of flag, it will be 2. And if I want to see the value of true, it will be true. So therefore, I got an error. So true is a valid variable name because the T is small. But true with a capital T is basically a Boolean constant. So to that Boolean constant, if I try to assign a value, let's see what happens. It says I cannot assign a value to a keyword, which makes sense. So when words have a defined meaning, you can't reuse them. So your variable names cannot be keywords. You have to keep that in mind, right? So that's what a Boolean variable is. So now that we know what a Boolean variable is, a Boolean variable can only take two values, true or false. Thank God it's easier. We can start using the Boolean variable now in a program. So my aim today is to show you how to work with an if statement in Python. So we are now going one step further. We know three data types now. We already know some 5-6 functions. And now we are going to talk about the if statement. Okay, it's also called clause in Python. So what is the if statement? What flavors is it available in? What can I do with it? We'll learn today. So if is basically a decision-making statement. It's to decide something, like in English. If it is raining, carry an umbrella. And that's it. Or you can say, if it is raining, carry an umbrella, else don't carry an umbrella. You could have both ways. You could have an if, you could have an if else. You could have ifs nested inside ifs. So there is a whole range of how you can write if statements, right? And having said that, we will now today also learn some new operators because I'll be needing those operators. So last week, we worked with arithmetic operators, if you remember. And under these arithmetic operators, I'll refresh your memories. We had the exponentiation, we had the addition, we had the subtraction, we had the integer division, we had the normal float division, we had the modulus operator. Anything that I've missed? Oh yes, multiplication. I've missed multiplication. Right? This is what you learned last week. These were the arithmetic operators. Let's look at a new class of operators today. Every language will have different type of operators. Today we are going to work with relational operators. And the relational operators are equal. So that's the equal now. The equal word that we say in English for equality, that's the equal. The not equal. The greater than sign. Is 5 greater than 2? Right? We all know that mathematically. Greater than equal to sign. Is 5 greater than or equal to 2? One of the conditions is true, but that's a combination. The less than sign and the less than equal to. Those are your relational operators. We will learn how to use them today in our if condition. And because we've talked about Boolean variables today, I'll just kind of draw this for you. We may not be able to do it today because it's you need them in compound conditions, but there are 3 Boolean operators. Not, and or in Python. Right? We already know the rules for arithmetic. Arithmetic rules bed maths. If you're given an arithmetic expression like 5 plus 2 minus 6, you know what to do. But you can always parenthesize it and change its priority. But otherwise, that's its priority. This way, in Boolean, just for your information, all relational operators have the same priority. So they are all the same. You say, so what happens if in a condition I see more than once, you just go left to right, right? So if this is this, we'll talk about that. And this not has the highest priority, then comes and then comes or. So the priority is also available in Boolean operators. Again, you can always change priorities by parenthesizing your expressions. So let's first look at the if statement. What is the if statement? What does it do? Why and what when we use it? And then from there, we will kind of talk about if time permits, which I'm not hoping today. We'll go to compound conditions and so on. So I'll show you different forms of if. A normal if, an if else, and if elif, and nested ifs, and so on and so forth. And when I do that, I will be using compound conditions. Oh, sorry, I'll be using relational operators today. Okay, so how do we do that? Go to File, create a new file. Hopefully you have been saving your work, and I've been putting your work on Blackboard too. So create a new file, you get the editor window. So this is your editor window. So at the least, I'm expecting your name, something I did with a different key, of course. I've pressed something. I'm expecting your name, Your name, not mine. Date. And these are comments. Comments are absolutely ignored by the interpreter. So Python uses an interpreter. An interpreter is a program that that changes your Python code to machine language one line at a time, right? So convert the first line, works. Okay, now go to the second line. Oh, there is a syntax error. Stop, right? So that's an interpreter. On the other hand, another class, the same kind of work is also done by a compiler, but the compiler compiles the whole program at one go, and wherever it finds syntax error, it will tell you line number 2, line number 7, line number 19, and so on. But that's the difference. So one is an interpreter and one is a compiler. Those are the two flavors. So there are comments, but I'm expecting that you will not make grammatical mistakes when you write comments. You will use proper English, grammatically correct, no spelling errors, should make sense, and so on. And if you have problems with the language, you can always type it in Word, do your spell check there, and then come and do it here. A comment line starts with the hash symbol. Anything on this line is completely ignored, but it's not useless. It's not garbage. It's something that programmers use to talk to each other. So it's for you and me. So don't think, oh, it's garbage, I don't have to do it. You have to do it, and it should be grammatically correct. So the date today is May 16th. And the purpose of the program today. So my purpose is basically to introduce you to relational operators and basically to the decision-making if statement, right? So I'll take some input from the user. So we will reiterate our input statement again. Work with the if statement, or the if clause as it is called. Both are interchangeable, right? And when I say if, I mean if else, and everything. So I just call it the if statement. It comes in different flavors. And relational operators. Your purpose is not written in black and white, in the sense that if I do something else, I'll add it, right? So if I get the time to work with Boolean operators, I'll just say work with Boolean operators also. But that's what my aim is today. So to work with the if statement and relational operators, we'll need relational operators because whenever you work with an if, you work with a condition. If it is raining, or if 5 is greater than 2. So as soon as you start writing conditions, you will see that you need relational operators. Now, if it is raining, doesn't need any operator. But if it is raining is true or false, right? But if 5 is greater than 2, again, the answer is true, false, but I've used a relational operator. So I'll show you a few things today. Okay, so let's try to learn to comment our code. So let's accept 2 integers. You could be working with floats or whatever from the user. I'm only working with integers because it is a little simpler, right? Accept 2 integers from the user. Please remember to use proper prompt signs. Save them in good variables, named variables, because otherwise it's useless. So I'm going to take my first variable, number 1. You can call it anything you want. And I'm going to show you something. You don't have to, you can if you like, and it is a common practice. You can, if you like, nest functions. So I have used input inside the int. So when it is nesting, it kind of explodes. So input will happen first. Whatever input you take from the user is then converted into an int. Right? So you could do this. Instead of doing it in different lines, you can just do it. So I want to work with 2 numbers. I'm going to do math today. So what did I do? When I read the number, I converted it into an int and saved it in number 1. Now, don't forget your prompt messages. So I'm going to ask the user to please input a number. Now, a common user will not know what an integer is. Like a common user. We understand because we are programmers. So when you're writing your prompt messages, write messages that make sense to the common user, because that's who will use your program at the end of the day. Programmers don't use programs. You know what I mean? Like, we make it for users. So now writing, please provide the first integer, and not everybody knows what an integer is. Everybody knows what a number is, but I have to somehow say I'm looking for a whole number. So hopefully whole number is not a bad one, but you never know. Maybe the user doesn't even know what a whole number is. So let's do this. Let's close our quotes. Our first statement is complete. So I've taken from the user a number and I've saved it in a box called number 1. I'm doing the same thing with number 2 now, and I'm going to say, please provide your second number. The message will come on the screen. The number will be taken and it will be assigned to the variable number 1 in the first statement and to number 2 in the second statement. So what will it do? It will do kind of 3 jobs at a time. It will call the input function. So the input function is called. It takes the input from the user via the keyboard. There are other ways of taking input. I could be reading from a file. Okay, we will learn that too. It takes the input from the user. Job number 2 converts it into an int, because the int is outside. So you see that parenthesis, int has its parenthesis. Remember, a function has an opening parenthesis and a closing. Anything inside it are its arguments, parameters. And then inside I wrote another input function which had its own parenthesis. So don't forget your parenthesis. So the job number 1, take input from the user. Job number 2, convert it into an int. Job number 3, assign it to the variable number 1. Is assignment important? Yes. Otherwise, you read it, you convert it, and it's gone. What do you do with it? Nothing. You didn't save it anywhere. So it's gone into air. So if you don't work with variables, if you don't put them somewhere, what will you do? You could go to Tim Hortons and say, give me a coffee. Okay, done. Finished. But unless the person prepares coffee for you, puts it in a glass for you, and gives you the glass, it makes no sense. Same kind of concept, right? You read something from the user, you want to use it, you want to drink it, you want to use it, you put it in a variable. Make sense? Okay, having said that, let's move forward then. So my input is ready. Now I want to do a few things with it. So I'm going to show you a few statements one by one, one step at a time, going from the easiest to more complex if statements, right? So I'm going to check if my numbers are equal. So these are called comments. Comments are a necessity in your code because they help me understand what you're trying to do. And if I don't write comments, maybe some of you are smart enough, but maybe some of you need comments or explanation as to what is she doing. So I'm going to check if the two numbers are equal. Right? That's what I'm going to check. So if I want to check, what will I use? I'll use a decision-making statement. And if is a decision-making statement. In programming, there are only 3 pillars that you have to kind of learn. 3 things you have to learn. It's not so difficult. 1, you should know how to write the code in sequence. This is what I want to do first, then this, then this. There has to be a sequence. 2, you should know how to write decision-making statements. So there is the if statement, there is the switch statement, and so on. And 3, you should know how to write iterative or looping statements. That's it. Nothing else. The rest is all logic. The rest is all logic. Like in a car, you should know how to stop a car. You know, I have to use the brake. You should know how to change the speed of the car, which is your accelerator. And that's it, in a sense. And then comes what? Experience. Right? So if I only tell you this is what you need to know about the car, of course, lock it and unlock it. But that's it. That's all you need to know in a car. But then with experience, you know how to work with it. You know how to change gears if it is not an automatic car. You know how to give indications if you want to go left and right. But there's not much to, if you kind of think about it theoretically, that's it. But then you have to know how to drive it. And that's what we are learning, how to use them, how to drive it, how to write logical programs. Right? So once you know these are my rules, You're good. You know the alphabets from A to Z. But now the next step is, how do I form words out of it? If GO is go, TO is to, SO is so, then you learn better words. Same concept. So there are only 26 letters, but you can write thousands and thousands of words and lines and essays out of it. And we write them differently, right? I could be asking a question from you and I'll get 20 different answers for the same. Same with programming. And that is the aim, to be good programmers, to write good programs, right? So that you write good, efficient, perfect programs. Maybe not at the beginning, but with experience. Okay, so now let's check if the two numbers are equal. So I'm going to use the if clause or the if statement. Notice how it has gone orange. It is a reserved word. It has to be spelled with IF, exactly lowercase. Python is a case sensitive language. It is case sensitive. If you have named a variable number 1 with n, everything small like I have, you can't change its case. You can't make n capital and say, oh, number 1 is already defined. A little different from humans, right? For us, it really doesn't matter. We call it number 1. It is number 1, however you write it. Small letters or capital letters. But Python is case sensitive language. Okay, so how am I going to check? I'm going to say if number 1 is equal to number 2. Who's doing the equality? The system, right? It knows that the two equal signs are going to check the values of the two variables to see what's inside those boxes. And if they are equal, the syntax says put a colon here. So you have to learn the syntax of everything, right? Like in a car, when you drive, if you have to turn right, you have to give an indicator for the right. If you turn left, you have to give an indicator for the left. You can't mess it up. So there are rules. So you have to follow rules. So the if statement starts with the reserved word if, then comes the condition. Which condition are you checking? That condition could be a simple condition like this. Or it could be a compound condition where you say if number 1 is equal to number 2 and something or something. You could combine conditions. Then it is called a compound condition. And that is where you use your Boolean operators. But we are working with a simple condition for now. So the condition is number 1 equal to number 2? You're checking. And what will be the result of a condition? True or false. A condition will always result in true or false, nothing else. Right? So now you know where Boolean constants are used. A condition will always result in either a true value or a false value. So you are saying if number 1 is equal to number 2. So you're basically saying that number 1 is equal to number 2. You say, who's saying it? Who's checking it? The computer has been already programmed to check the equality sign to mean what we do as humans. So it has been told how to do that. You don't have to worry about it. All you have to worry about is what is the sign that I use. Okay. So the equality sign is used to check the equality of two numbers. And I'm saying if they are equal, what do I do? Please notice something. Now this is a rule in Python. It is called the indentation rule. Automatically, when I wrote an if statement properly without any syntax errors, I put my colon and everything. The cursor shifted from the column 1 to another position. It could be column 2, 3, 4, whatever, but it shifted. It indented itself. Now this indentation of 4 spaces has already been done for you. So somewhere in option, there, notice that's 4 spaces. So whenever, so you can change it to 2 if you like. You can do it to 6, 8, 10, whatever you like. But it depends on you. But this has been already done. So there is no magic going on here. Oh, how did it shift to 4? It has been set to shift to 4, right? So you could even do 1. You could even do, if you don't like the 4, you could make your own. But it has to be indented. The code has to be indented. Indentation is a rule in Python. Some people love it. Some programmers say, oh, lovely. I don't have to write a begin and an end. Because if statement will have a if body or an if clause.
This is where I begin. This is what I want to do if my statement is true. So it could be a statement, it could be many statements, but I want to club them together. Some languages use the reserved words begin and end to say, oh, that's my if clause, that's what I want to do. Some languages use the curly brackets, right? Opening curly brackets and closing. And Python uses indentation. So by indentation, you're saying that whatever after the if I have shifted it even one space to the right, all statements that now come under if, you write them together once, leave one column, and start it from the second. I'm fine with 4 columns. It doesn't bother me at all. I'll stick with it. If you want to change it to whatever you like, you can change it in options. Or if you don't want to change it in options, you can do it manually, right? You can kind of go back and say, oh, I'll just leave 1 column, and you can do this. I prefer not to kind of mess with it, just because what's the use of using an environment if you want to make your own rules? The main thing is it's helping you, right? But you can change it to whatever you like. So what do you want to do if the 2 numbers are equal? You want to tell the user the 2 numbers are equal, right? So we'll print, and we'll say print. We can just say the numbers are equal, but which numbers? So remember, I've always said when you show an output, the output must be clear. So you can say, we'll write the number 1 and number 2. I'll say number 1, that's the value, is equal to number 2. That's my print statement. So whatever is in quotes will be spit out, and whatever is not in quotes, its value will spit out. But I've made a mistake here. Can anybody point out what is missing? What am I missing in my print statement? Come again? It could be wrong or right, doesn't matter. I heard some hyphen. Where do I need the hyphen? No, I called my variable number 1. I didn't call it number underscore 1. So the variable is called number 1.
This will write a string and inherit.
Remember, print statement says all its arguments should be strings. But number 1 is not a string, it is an int. So what should I do? I should convert, only convert for showing it. I'm not converting it permanently. There is a difference. I'm just converting it to show it. If I had converted it and assigned it back to number 1, then it was a permanent. So this is different from this. Please understand. If I had done this, then this was a permanent conversion. Number 1 is converted into a string and saved back into number 1. So now number 1 is a string. But I'm not converting it because I just want to show it. So to show it, I don't need this. What will I do? Just for the purpose, I'll say, show the number as a string. That's all I'm saying. Because it's a rule that the print statement requires that its arguments be strings. And I'll do the same with number 2. Right? Remember this operator? It is called the concatenation operator. It's not the plus arithmetic operator. Strings had two operators, if you remember from last week. The 2 string operators that we used last week. One was the concatenation operator and one was the times operator, replication. Right? So I could replicate. I could say A into 5. A in quotes into 5. We could write A 5 times. So these are the 2 string operators. One is called the concatenation operator, for your information. Concatenated means add them, though it's not add. And this is called the replication operator. Okay? Okay, so let's see if it works. Let's see if my program works. That's all I've done. I've written an if statement. Save it. Please save it somewhere where you can find it again. Don't ask me, where is my program? You should know where your program is. So save it on your C drive, create a directory if you want, but see that you have it somewhere. So I'm saving it in a particular folder, and of course I know what it is folder is. So we'll call it program 2, and that's only for me. You can call it whatever you like. And I'm showing you if today, so we'll call it decision. So my program 2 is basically working with decision making statements. You can call it whatever you like, but please don't call it ABC. Give it a name that will help you to know what is in it. So program 2, because this is my second program I am doing, decision because I'm doing decision making statements. And we'll save it. Okay, let's run it. Remember F5 to run. Okay, there. It says, please provide the first whole number. Let's make some mistakes. I'm going to give a 2.5 here. So the input will be taken, but then you're trying to convert 2.5 into an int. And it will say, I can do it. And look at the error. It's a value error. The value error says you're trying to convert 2.5 in base 10. Base 10 means decimal system. And it is an invalid literal. Literal means a constant. 2.5 is a constant. Literals are constant. It's an invalid literal because it's not a whole number. So if you're going to use the int function to convert input into an integer, your input must be an integer. It has to be. So 12.5 or 2.5 is not an integer. Okay, so let's try it again the right way now. And similarly, this won't work. Let's try to convert Anju into an integer. Of course it won't work. It says that's not a valid literal. So when you use the int function, your input must be an int. When you use the float function, your input can be an int or a real number. Doesn't matter because 2 is a valid real number. It's a valid float. It will be saved as 2.0. So any number, positive or negative, with a fractional part, without a fractional part, is a valid float number. But when it is saved as a floating point number. And floating arithmetic is very different from integer arithmetic, for your information. Okay, now let's try it once more and behave ourselves. Let's try it once more. And let's say 5 and minus 3. Positive or negative, both are integers. What will it come up with? Nothing. That's strange, isn't it? Why? Because you didn't tell it to say anything. You said if the numbers are equal, give me a message. So now the poor user is saying, what's happening? I don't have an answer. So what kind of program is this? Let's try it once more. And this time, I'll give 2 equal numbers. 5 and 5. Oh, now I see 5 is equal to 5. So what am I missing? It would be nice to give a message either way. If they are equal, say they are equal. If they are unequal, say they are unequal. Tell the user something. Otherwise, if you're not answering the user, your program is not a good program. So it's not wrong. It didn't give an answer, but then it's not right even. It's not perfect. So what will I do? I'm going to show you another way of doing it. So I leave this if statement alone so that you can see it. And then I'm going to write another statement for you. I'm going to say, check if the two numbers are equal or unequal. And display a message. And we'll also say and display the message. Right? Now what I'll do is I'll use another feature of the if statement, another flavor. So I have to go, now it is going to automatically to column number 4 because it is thinking, oh, there is more to write here. You still have to write more. But I'm okay with one statement. If you needed to write more statements, sure, go ahead and write. Nothing stops you. So the if clause can have any number of statements. All statements should start from the same column. They all become children of the if statement. That's the rule. That's how it works. So something like this. All COPA students will wear yellow today. All CS and CSTN students will wear green today. So that's how you recognize them. Okay, so I'll have to take my cursor back to column 1 and write my else here. So the if can have an else. So the if can work without an else. You just saw it. I did it for you. But the if can have an else. Now, is it a necessity? No, because we just did it. It depends on what you're trying to do. Right? So now let's do this. Let's take the same thing, the same print statement. And notice how again it has indented it where it should. And I'm going to say is unequal here. I'll change the message. I think I was one ahead of else and therefore it kind of went to there. That's the body of the else clause. Again, you could have any number of statements in if and you could have any number of statements in the else. So now let's see how it works. Right? Now let's see how it works. So let's save this again. Let's save this again. And you'll say, what happens if I want to just, I want to finish off my if else, or I want to finish off my if. Like I come back to normal in the sense that come back to the normal flow of program. Nothing stops you. Come back to column 1 again. And just write a statement from column 1 again. Right? Guys, the class starts at 8. And after today, starting next week, I will not allow anybody to come in after 5 minutes the class starts. That's a rule. If you want to come to my class, you come by 5 after 8. That's giving you 5 minutes of leeway. After that, you're not entering my class. Clear? Right? If it is bad weather, I can understand. I can, oh, things can happen. But if it's a perfectly fine day, then we come when the class starts. Because you leave when the class ends. You don't stay later than your time. You have another class to attend. Okay, so that's a simple rule for everybody. So some students came at 10 after 8 today. A few more came at quarter after 8. And now we have somebody coming at almost 50 minutes late. Nothing doing. I cannot lock the doors, but I won't let you enter. So keep that in mind. So if you want to come to your normal flow of statements again, back to like normal, finish off your if statement, all you do is start again from column 1. Right? Now let's see how this works. So save it and let's try it again. So I'll do the 5 and 5 again. Why is the message coming twice? Because you have 2 if statements. I mean, you can comment out 1 if you don't want to see them twice, but it's fine. So the first if is working because the 2 numbers are equal. And the second if is also working because the 2 numbers are equal, right? So it is working. So if is working and if else is also working. Now let's try something that is not equal. Right? So let's try the second thing now. So we'll run it again. And this time, I'm going to try something different. While, uh-oh, it didn't make connection. Okay, let's try it once more. It didn't make connection, it said. Where is it trying to make the connection? I have no clue. Maybe it runs at a particular port or something, but it's not making connection. And problems like this can arise. It's not a big deal. Let's try one more time, or the option is I'll run it again. Oh, I'll close and run it again. Okay, so something is not working right. So the easiest way is I'll close it. And of course, therefore, I keep saving my program as I go on. Right, I'm going to close it. And I'll try running it again this way. The shell should open there. Right, so sometimes this shell misbehaves. And it's okay, it's not a big deal. So save your programs as you go on so that if you have to come back,
You have to shut down idle for whatever reason. Don't ask me why. It's just software. Cars can stop working. Too, right? It's just software. Things can go wrong. TV can stop working. Phone can stop working. Anything can happen. So all you have to do is you try to see what's happening. So the only way it said try and shut off Python and doing it again. I could have looked up the error and see what it is doing, but it was an easy fix. I just closed my shell. You could restart your shell. There is a restart option also, and I just ran the program again. And when I ran it again, it just kind of started again. So it worked for me. Okay, so now it says, please provide the first number. I'm going to go 5 and I'm going to go -2. Now my numbers are unequal. Make sense? Right? Now the first if is working, but since there was no message in it for the else part, that was fine. I didn't get a message. So that doesn't mean, oh, the first if is not working. Of course it is working. You didn't tell it not to print a message if they were unequal. And my second if else is also working. So make sense? So that's the if else statement, right? The condition can be anything. It could be a simple condition like I'm doing. It could be using relational operators and so on and so forth. Now let's go a step ahead. Now if the numbers are unequal, I want to do something else. So now if the numbers are unequal, so check if the two numbers are unequal or equal. And when they are unequal, I want you to find the greater of the two or display the greater of the two. It could be greater, it could be less or whatever. I just chose greater. Right? So now think about it. I have to do 3 kind of things. One, if they are equal, my job is done. They're equal, finished. But if they are unequal, I want to do a job further. I have to do something else more. If they are unequal, then I have to check which one of them is bigger. So first I make a decision. Are you equal? Are you unequal? Decision number 1. Decision number 2. If you are unequal, which one of you is greater? So that's another decision. So 2 decisions to be made. So can I do it? Of course you can. Let's try it. Let's try how to do it. So think about it. If the numbers are equal, my job is done. But if the numbers are unequal, in the else part, I again have to make a decision. I need another decision making step. And that's what we say that it is nested. So you have an if inside it. Let's see how to write that statement. Okay, so pick it up again. Pick your if again and pick it till else. And I'll show you 2 ways of writing it, okay? I'll show you 2 ways of writing it. Okay, so if number 1 is equal to number 2, I'm good. I say the numbers are equal. But if the numbers are equal, I want to check which number is greater, right? Okay, so let's check which number is greater. So the else part is checking for, if you want to write a comment for yourself, nothing stops you. And a comment is a comment, can start from any line. Though it's usually a good habit to kind of not confuse it with indentation, but you could have written it anywhere. So please see how I'm commenting my code. And I expect you to comment your code when you give it to me. Okay? Okay, now what do I want to do? I have to make a further decision. So in the else part, I want to put an if again. Right? My second decision now. So this is a nested if. So if they were equal, good to go, job done. But if they are unequal, another decision to be made. Now, what is that another decision? I want to check which number is greater. So I'm going to say if number 1 is greater than number 2, you could have changed the condition. You could have said if number 1 is less than number 2. Like you could have used any relational operator that greater than or equal to will depend upon what I'm going to do. I'm making another decision. So if number 1 is greater than number 2, I want to print out. I want to say that
number 1 is greater than number 2. I know I'm making a mistake. My pluses are missing. That's okay. Usually I just write it first so that I know what I want to write. And then good enough. So I'm telling you which number is greater. So what did I do? I nested an if inside the else. So you can have another if statement in either of the blocks. You can have an if inside an if, you can have an if inside an else. And this nesting can go on to any level. You can have ifs and ifs and ifs and ifs and ifs, else is else, and if inside, like there is no end to it. Right? There is no end to it. You can do it either way, like whatever. So, but that doesn't mean an if can only occur inside an else. You could have an if inside an if also, but it's a nested if. Let's try this now. If number 1 is equal to number 2, I should get a message, which hopefully I will. Okay, so let's provide the first number and the second number. Now I'm seeing 3 equal messages because I have 3 if statements. So the first one is giving me 5 is equal to 5. The second one is also giving me 5 is equal to 5. And the third one is also giving me 5 equal to 5. Makes sense? I have 3 if statements. Makes sense. Come back to your code again. Now let's try something that is unequal. Okay, so let's try the first number to be 5 and the second number to be -2. So 5 is unequal to -2 is coming from the second if statement, and 5 is greater than -2 is now coming from the third if statement. Makes sense? Now let's try something else. I'm going to give my first number as a smaller one. So 2 and 5. The second number is bigger now. I don't see the message of who is greater. What did I miss? I need another else statement. That's all I need. Right? Okay, so where do I put it? Now comes the big question. Where do I put it? Who does it belong to? This else that the other number is greater. Who's its if? Which if is it connected to? Is it connected to if number 1 is equal to number 2, or is it connected to if number 1 is greater than number 2? Whose else is it? It can be both. One else cannot belong to 2 ifs. Right? So it belongs to the second if. Number 1 is greater than number 2. That's the else you want to talk about. Right? So what will you do? You will write an else statement here. And you will have to manually take that else and place it in the same column as your if. You'll have to do it. Why did it not do it for me? Because when I do a return here, it kind of says, oh, do you want to write more things in your if? You can. All you have to do is print. Like whatever you want to do, any extra thing you want to do, you can do it. Nothing stops you. So an if statement can have more than one statements inside it. The if statement, the if clause, the if block can have any number of statements as long as they are indented properly. Right? But I mean, I don't need it, so I'm not doing it. Or you could just leave it empty if you want. Now this else is a part of this if. One if can only have one else. One else cannot cater to 2 ifs. Right? So this else will do what? I'll give a print statement here. And I'll just say number 2 is greater than number 1. So you're seeing a nested if, and you could have a simple nested if. Oh, so what I'll do is, I'll just do it so that you can see that I have an if with an if and without an if. So I'll copy this till here, only till where I had it before. So this, the second if did not have an else. Instead of saying or display the greater of the 2 and display if the first number is bigger. I've changed my messages a little because it didn't have an else. So it was only displaying if the first number was greater. Otherwise, it wasn't displaying anything. In here, I find out who is the bigger one. So again, you can only have an if you can have an if else if you want. Nothing stops. Another very important thing that I would like to mention to you. When do you have, you could be writing multiple if statements, or you could be writing if else's. How do you make that decision? Now, if your conditions are mutually exclusive, that means cannot happen together. For example, if it is raining outside, has nothing to do with if Anju has an 8 a.m. class. So you'll have two different if statements, right? But here I'm talking about two numbers and I'm talking about the relationship between the two numbers. So I'm saying if the numbers are equal, do this, else do this. I don't want you to write two different statements for it. If the numbers are equal, print numbers are equal. And write an independent second if statement. If numbers are unequal, say the number are unequal. So I don't want you to do this. It is not the right way of doing it. Notice what did I do? I did an if else here. You could have, and some students do it. So I'm going to say the same check. I'm bringing this to your notice because students still do it, even if they are in the third year. And it's not correct way of doing it. There's nothing wrong in it, but it's not the most efficient one. So they check, they write two independent if statements. So they check if number 1 is equal to number 2, write they're equal. If number 1 is not equal to, say they are unequal. But this is not, these are independent ifs. These are independent ifs, but they are incorrect independent ifs. Incorrectly coded. Why incorrectly coded? Because what's the sense of writing two if statements? They're related. If you think of it, you'll say, oh, how does it matter to me? It will decrease the efficiency of your program. This is only a 10-line program. But if the program was thousands of lines and you didn't write it efficiently, then it's not good. Why is it inefficient? It will check this condition first. If this condition is true or false, whatever it is, it will do the job. And it will also check this condition because it is just an independent if. Irrespective of you've already found out the numbers are equal. Right? So these are independent ifs, but they are incorrectly or inefficient independent ifs. I don't want you to write it this way. And as I said, students still do it. It's not wrong, but it's not correct even. It's not perfect. So what should you do? You should do this. You should use an else if. This is what you should do. All this will come on Blackboard. So if you don't have time to write all the comments, don't worry. Right? I'll put this on Blackboard when I'm done. You will have this program. So this is more efficient now. Let me tell you why it is more efficient. If it finds out that the numbers are equal, it won't even execute the else part. That's the advantage. So writing 10 if statements will execute every if statement. But if what you are checking is related, don't write independent if statements, write if else's. Because what happens in if else's, if the condition is true, it won't even go to the else. If the condition is false, then of course it will go into the else, which is fine. But in this case, it will always go to both ifs. So there is a difference. This will always do both ifs. But this one, it will depend. It may do one, it may do both. But that depends upon your condition. So don't use independent ifs in your code if not required. If you use them, of course, that's a different thing altogether. Otherwise, don't. Okay? Okay, so now what did I do? So now I must get a proper message saying which number is greater, whether they are equal, whether they are unequal. Everything must work perfectly now. Let's try it again. Okay, so let me give my first number as 3, my second number as -4. So 3 is greater than -4. So 3 is unequal, 3 is unequal, 3 is greater than -4, 3 is greater than -4. Everything is working. You're seeing repetitive messages because I have 5 if statements. Looks okay? Let's try the opposite now. The first number is greater. It was working before also when the first number was greater. When the first number was smaller, there is where it was kind of not giving me a message. So let me make my first number as smaller and my second number as greater. This is what was not giving me a message before. Now I'm seeing it. Now the program is perfect. Now it's telling the user everything the user needs to do. If they are equal or unequal was your aim, then you can stop there. If they are equal, but that's also fine. But if they are unequal and your aim is to find which is the greater one, then you go a step ahead and you find out which is the greater one. So now all messages are coming on the screen. You can avoid, you'll say, oh, that's very untidy. I don't want to see 5 times. But that's me just showing you different ways of doing it. You won't do it 5 times in your code. When you write an if statement, you will only do it once. And now, before I give you a break, one more thing. This else if that you've seen, is this clear? Is it clear to everybody? This nested if is just an if inside an else or an if. It's called a nested if. In Python, see how important it is to write correct comments, because if I don't write correct comments, my code is not matching my comments. And I don't understand what's going on. But in Python, there is another way of writing this nested if. It confuses some students and it works well for others, but you should know about it because it's available. And this is how you do it. I'm just kind of leaving a little line so that we can see. This is an alternative of another way. This is a nested if, okay? So you can, if you like, for your own self, if you want it, you can put a comment of nested if here. This is a nested if, or like, I mean, you can put it in the same line, nothing stops you. But again, if you find it untidy, you can just put it here. Oops. This is a nested if. There is an alternative way of writing the nested if, which is called an elif. What happens is this. Instead of writing else and then if in a different line, you can use the reserved word elif, which is actually means the same thing, right? It says else and then you're writing the nested. It can be done the same way. But remember, in this case, what will I have to do? I'll have to take this else and align it with my elif now. So some students find it very confusing because the indentation is confusing. But you can choose whatever you like. Maybe in the beginning, write the nested if it makes more sense. And when you become a little acclimatized to it, a little more experienced or comfortable with Python, start using this. This will work too. This should work too. So let's try this again, right? So let's try the F5 again. So the elif is available. So we'll try whatever. I mean, we should get a proper answer. So I'm seeing 5 greater than 3 twice now. And I don't have an error, so everything is working. So I see how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 outputs. 4 outputs. I think I have more statements, right? So 5 is unequal to 3. So the first one should come from, it's not equal, so this won't work. The first unequal must come from here. Where's your other window? Okay, so the first one is coming right. Then we do this. it should again become an unequal. So second unequal was also coming. Okay, so the second unequal is also coming. Then where do I go? I go to the third one, this one, where it should, if it was greater, 3 is greater than 5. It is not, so it will not come. That's okay. Then I came to this one. Yep, it's right. All are working. Because messages were missing in some. So I'm thinking, why is it not same? So that's your else, elif. It's called the elif. Again, please see the rule of indentation. So the third else, not the third else, the else that you see is of this if. So every if will have one else. One else cannot cater for two ifs. Keep that in mind. If may or may not have an else. But every else will only cater to one if. And how do you kind of match them? You match them by placing them properly and indenting them properly. Again, where should I use independent ifs? Where should I use if else's is another thing. One more thing that I, again, just for the heck of it, to bring to your notice, which is again not wrong, but not the most efficient. Let me do something for you. See, there are many ways of doing it. I'm going to show you something else. I have an if, and unnecessarily, I kind of repeat it. You didn't know it at that time. So I'll put this at the end. Now that you know elif, okay? Now that you know elif, I'll put it here. Again, cautioning you to something. Unnecessary condition in else. See, what am I doing? I'm just putting a condition in my else. So the second if doesn't have an else again. So that's another example that your nested if may not have an else. So if this your else if it confuses you, still if you're not comfortable, I can write it like this for you. It's not a big deal. I mean, I can do this, but elif, because it's a single statement, it was just easy. But notice how I am doing something that is not required. I am saying if number 1 is equal to number 2, say they are equal. And then I'm saying if they are not equal, print this. Now, those are the two only options. Either they are equal or they are unequal, if that's what you're doing. What is the sense of repeating the condition again? It's not necessary. Is it wrong? Will it give you a wrong answer? No, it will not give you a wrong answer. But it is inefficient. Why? Because it will check the condition again. Because there is an if, it will check the condition again. Right? So if you like it this way and you understand it, good. Otherwise, if there is, and again, this if has no else inside it. And you see another example, it doesn't. So else's are not necessary with ifs. But unnecessary condition in else, now it is not an else. It's basically an if in the second if in nested if. I'll have to change this. It's not required because, like, what's the sense? There are only two options, equal or unequal. I've already checked if they are unequal. What's the sense of writing again that they are unequal? So it's not required. So again, just because we've done elif, just because you've done it, and it's always a good way of trying things different ways. I'll just write the elif for you so that you can see that, oh, it is still called a nested if, but you can say elif if you like. It is still a nested if. It's an if inside an else. It's just a different way of writing. Useless. Now this is more clear to read. Now here it's more clarity. You're saying if number 1 is equal to number 2, do this. Else if number 1 is not equal to number 2, do this. I don't see a reason.
It's inefficient. So where do you use independent ifs?
So when you say unnecessary, you can also say with unnecessary inefficient condition, because it's it's a double work. Does it make sense? Is it making sense to everybody? Please ask questions. Please ask questions if you don't understand. No question is stupid, no answer is wrong. Because if you say a wrong answer, you will learn it the right way. It will make sense. If you were thinking something and you were thinking wrong, at least you know what you were thinking wrong, right? So always ask questions. It's always a good way of learning. So it's inefficient. It doesn't make sense. It's not wrong. It will still work. Try giving two unequal answers and you will see the last it will work. So give it a go again. Let's do an F5 for the last time. Oh, unexpected. Okay, so something is wrong. Oh, here, see, I gave it a wrong indentation. My indentation was wrong. This is what I had. I got an error, a syntax error. There was no indentation. So indentation is a rule. When I put if in the next line, I forgot to indent it. And indentation is a rule. So let's try it for one last time. And I'll do the equal or unequal, really doesn't matter, right? So I'll give a 3 and a 5. Notice these two last statements are coming from the two new statements, the two new if-elses you've written. It's doing the same job like it was before, with extra work, with an extra condition. So definitely it is inefficient. If you don't need to do the same job, it already told me 3 is unequal to 5 without using that extra condition. So definitely it is inefficient. It's doing more work than required. So don't try to do an overkill. It's called an overkill. This is also called an overkill. You already checked a condition and now you are rechecking it and it's called an overkill for information, just so that you know. It's an overkill. Unnecessary condition, overkill condition. So you can, if you like the term, but if you would like to know what the term is called, it's called an overkill. You've killed it once, you're killing it again. Make sense? No. If you've killed somebody and it's dead, you're again killing it. That's why it's called an overkill condition. Just a second. So when you hear it, you should. Everything made sense? Any questions for me? If there are no questions, it means two things. Everybody understood it, nobody understood it. Right? There are two options there. Hoping that you got it, right? So this was what we did in if today. This program is saved. It will go on Blackboard for you. I'm not doing compound conditions today because I want you to do an in-class assignment today for me, right? So we'll go to compound conditions the next time. So this program is going on Blackboard and I'll open up the assignment for you. And what is your assignment? So you can take a break now. It's 9:20. Please be back by 9:40. I'll put the assignment up on Blackboard or I'll show it. The assignment itself will not go. I'll take an attendance and before you leave, because there are no new, please before you leave, on one side, you will use the other side to say that you were in class. So please write your own names. So today it's Wednesday, May 16th, and you are doing your first ICA 1. So before you leave for break, please put your name on this. Your name will do only your name, okay, as it appears on Blackboard. So not your names that are your pet names, but as it appears on Blackboard. So before you leave, please put your name, leave, take a 20-minute break, come back. And the program that I've just finished, I'm putting it up on Blackboard for you. So your programs are going under Wednesday, okay?
Any accommodations?
What's your name? Bradley. No, I don't think
No?
so.
Okay, so what I'll do is, my professors don't seem to be getting the emails that she's been sending out.
I don't think so. There was an email about a student yesterday. Let me check. Give me a minute.
If
For
not,
some accommodation, but I mean, I don't remember the name Bradley. I think it was a girl's name, but I could be wrong.
well, what
Yeah, I'll just double check and let you know. No, it wasn't for you.
So what I'll do is I'll give you a copy that she sent me,
Mm-hmm.
and then once I book a meeting with her, because no one she does, maybe she's not sending them out. I don't know.
I don't know, but no, I have it from somebody from somebody else.
So here's the copy that she gave me. Do you want me to give it to you on a USB stick?
Just email it to me.
No.
Yeah.
So essentially, it just says food, extra time for tests, allowing to be late, alternative format, stuff like that.
Okay. So talk to me whenever you need extra time for assignments. Okay.
That's great.
So remember, the in-class assignment is an independent assignment. You're not working in groups or pairs or anything. And if you cannot avoid talking to your next door neighbor, please come and sit on across each other, 4 on a table. Okay, help me, please. Open it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you're better than me. Thanks.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
This question that I faced during yesterday that when the lesson through on the textbook. Yes, I have a question. So what is the use of the break and so
Now,
is that
I will do it in class, but break says come out of the if,
okay?
and continue says go back to the beginning of the
Oh yeah.
statement.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what they are in rough language.
Yes. So once I run this, for example, yeah, okay. Yes. Okay. So if I put
Okay, so what are you saying? You're saying if name is not Stella, continue.
yes.
So continue means come out of this if, and it will come and say print and master or whatever.
Yes. Yes. Because,
Yeah, but after the if, when you come out of the if, this is your next statement. This is your print statement.
yes.
So that's what it will do.
I know, but here. So if I put it's not 100. If I put the one not 100% in here. So for example, the 50%. So but
No.
it
But
won't-
okay, so password is 50%.
no, the password should be the 100%. But if I put the
So break means break out of. It's the same for your program. It's doing the same job
yes,
because you only have one statement each. But if there were more than one statements, I could show you the difference.
yes. So I hope so. It means that I want to if I type the wrong password. So what should I do? Is that it will make it back to
Yeah. See, continue says go ahead.
okay.
Break says go ahead. For your statement, you only have one statement, so they're doing the same job.
Oh, okay.
But if I had statement 1, statement 2, break,
Yes.
statement 3, statement 4, then break will not do 3 and 4.
Again, it's so because this one because with the wrong password will return to the first one because this
Remember, this is an
Oh,
if. This is an if. It's not a while. There is a difference when you use break and continue in while and ifs.
Oh, okay.
So there is a little more to learn in it, and
get
I will do it.
Okay,
Right?
I get
But right here, they're acting the same way. For you.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
I was in Tuesday class.
Did you email me that you won't attend the Tuesday class and come to the Wednesday class?
No, I just
Why not?
I just shifted it yesterday. Just shifted this class yesterday. So it's not your link is not working.
But did you inform me? No. And you just didn't
No,
turn up,
because
right?
I just she started. So I thought that I have to come today.
But I should be informed because if there is an in-class assignment and you are on Tuesday class on my board, that means you didn't come and you got a 0. Okay? But now, both sections, whether it is Tuesday or Wednesday,
No one.
nothing is coming. Okay, so you'll have to email me with your name and password. And you were in Tuesday section before and now you have shifted to Wednesday. I'll have to send it to IT and they'll have to do something about it. And then it will come back on your platform. Okay. So send me an email and I'll forward it. Okay. With your name and your complete name and your student number.
Today's assignment.
Maybe you will have to just email it to me. Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they should have a proper way of using the rate. You see, in this case, yeah, what they're doing is they're adding a condition. In this case, it's a count, so it's not a boolean. But the whole purpose behind that is to count the number of times you through and have an end to it. That you should still have a way to become a false statement. Right? If you know that was it looks like they use let's see what I mean, maybe that's practice. I found out it seems odd. Well, I mean, it looks like that's how they're using it here. Because that's basically what they do here. It just breaks out of it, which, yeah, to me, feels strange. Because I'd much rather have a different type of conditional statement. So you could say, I bet you could say while, and that's not a variable. So then you said, so you put the very top, very top, go above your while. It's right above everything else. And every time it's out, but if you run like a test, it's true. Yeah, I bet you can write in the while loop. Exact syntax, but it's like I'm thinking somewhere along the lines. I don't know if this is the proper test. So you can do something along those lines. I don't know if that works in this case. But you see what I'm saying? So it's better practice to then later on your variable turn test to false when you reach the condition that you want, instead of just breaking out of it. That way you actually change your variable. That's how you find it in most other programs. Practice. And then where you have break, put test equals false. Yeah, and then so remove the break.
And you were still like, you're 5 minutes long.
Get ready. I have to wake up.
Oh, because that's the key there. Because you're not assigning the
That's the trailer. The skit. Girl who was simple play. It's like this 5-minute video per dog. Okay. 222.
You forgot to do what? Oh, you can run it on the command line is what you're saying? Okay, so what are you using, Windows 10? Okay, so open up your system where you have your environment variables. Go to your control panel.
Where are you? I mean, it's a phone call. And he's allowed us to.
Inside control panel, go to system and security. System. And system advanced system settings. Environment variables. Look for path here, path. Do an edit. Add a new one. And say C:\\. I think it's Python 64. I'll have to check. That's what I have. I'm hoping it's the same for you. What am I looking for? Same as you, right?
Okay. So what you're trying to do,
Just one. Make it self.
I think it's this. So try putting this C:\Python 34. Okay, that's it. Do an okay. Is it in it now? Okay, now go to your command line. Yeah. Now try to put Python. Yep. Okay.
Like going through memory lane.
It's like, let's do like,
You bring that to
So like what is it? And then you can actually
It's like thanks, man. We can use so much money. Your two friends are friends and shop.
so that will and then like just for fun.
I was asking to take my history.
So if I wrote that,
Yeah, it's with that then.
so what should happen is I should ask you for your what the regular just go, what is your name? Boom, and you're out of the program stuff. Right? Because that's my exit, right? So then let's say we want to put that of some sort. So you're trying to check a password. So then you're just like, you don't have to do it. Ask right? So then, and then let's do it practice. Kind of twist it.
You just literally you gotta ask me. So we're usually on.
Password 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So then we can say.
Really?
Like 6 episodes of Thursday. Did you last stop? All of the turn are the best are.
Just waiting for the fire.
I like reading.
Exactly. Then we just say, no, right? There, then like.
It's good.
Yeah, there's real cameras and there's real cameras. Or technically. Or have to do yeah, they have to go technically they have.
So I know I have. So if we then go down 5.
At first,
Oh, I didn't put in the
they're
color.
the same guy, you just go.
So that's the going down to 5.
Guys, if you haven't saved the Python, if you cannot run Python on the command line, this is how you should test that you can run Python on the command line. Open a command window and you should be able to say Python. And you should get the interactive shell. If you haven't been able to do this, you forgot to check it when you installed it. All you need is you add this C:\Python 34 in your environment variables. That's all you need. You should be able to run Python on the command line. Right? If you cannot, then please see that you add this C:\Python 34 to your environment variables. You can find your environment variables under control panel system settings. Right? You should be able to, the program that I wrote just now, see here, the program that I wrote just now, I should be able to run it on Python on my command line.